Perhaps the most difficult stretch of Wisconsin basketball season starts this weekend. Let's get into it. It's the Bucky Report.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective.
Woo-hoo!
Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome into the Bucky Report. We are your hosts, Rajeev and Justin, in for our Three Big Things midweek episode to talk about a huge basketball rivalry coming up this weekend against the Marquette Golden Eagles, or whatever they're called nowadays. An unbelievable stretch that is about to start, Justin. Huge, difficult. We've got Marquette, Michigan State, Arizona. We're going to get into all that. We're going to talk mainly about Marquette today. We are at the Bucky Report on Twitter, on YouTube, and wherever you can get your podcast. If you like the content, hit the subscribe button so you know when we're doing more, and we certainly appreciate that. Justin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited about this one. This is going to be some really good basketball coming up here shortly.
We're going to learn a lot in the next three games, and the biggest thing that I think going into it, I understand we're probably not going to win these games, and maybe we win one at Michigan State, maybe we steal one of the Marquette Arizona games, but it's about how we play, how we look, whether or not we can take the defensive intensity that we've built up recently and let that translate. I know this is tough. I know we're probably not going to win, but it's all about that performance.
No, I agree completely. This is a game. This is a giant lesson coming up here. Like, we're going to find out what this team has learned so far from the Tennessee and Providence games for them to be able to move forward and apply it towards teams that are on the Tennessee caliber going forward, which Marquette is definitely on that level.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it.
The Bucky Report's Three Big Things.
Three big things. The first one, Justin wrote this one. I love it. Justin, take the first three big thing.
Number one, Greg Gard needs to settle his rotations and let the guys play. He's been kind of all over the place so far this season with playing guys. We'll have somebody go into the game, do something that he doesn't like, and they instantly get the hook. And I don't love that, because what it does is it makes things really chaotic in terms of your player rotations. At some point, you need to let guys play through mistakes a little bit. Now, if it's consistently happening, yes, you need to keep that hook out there. But, I mean, we've seen it with Connor, who has been fighting through an injury a little bit, where he'll jack up a shot that Gard doesn't like, and boom, he's out. It's like he was just in for like a minute. Like, why are you pulling him already? Like, at some point, you need to let the kid shoot just to get in the flow of the game a little bit. And that just hasn't been happening. And honestly, I don't love how Blackwell's been being used. And Ryan is right. He needs to play more. He played 18 minutes the last game, which is fine. I mean, we were playing an overwhelmed opponent. He doesn't have to play a ton if you want to get some of the other guys in. But going forward against a team like Marquette, I expect him to play 25 minutes. And he should. If you want to win that game. Heck, I'm not against him playing 30 in that game. Storr needs to play more. He only played 18, I believe, in that game too, the last one. It's like, what, you got to get these guys reps. And it's fine that you were playing, like I said, an overmatched opponent. But when we play games against these top teams, I don't like the trade-off of Storr for Blackwell. Like, at some point, you need to play those two guys out on the court together. And because they're going to have overlapping minutes. Like, if you're going to play these guys 25 minutes each, it's going to have to be Klesmet or somebody who gets pulled. And if that's the case, so be it. But I think that from a scoring standpoint, you're looking at that might be your best group. So yeah. If you're going to have Chucky, Blackwell, and Storr out there, I really like that group out there from a scoring standpoint.
Yeah, I think you're totally right about the settling the rotation. I love this big thing, and I think this is really important because now I will say this. Last year at this time, we were talking about how he wasn't playing guys enough, and this is the time to get those minutes, right? So I do understand why he's done what he's done so far, but it does need to get settled in now. If you look at a team like Marquette, They've got their rotation settled to 8, really mainly 7 people, but they go 8 deep. And that's pretty much set rotation. Ours is, it's really fluid. And in some games, Connor will get more minutes. Some games, someone else will. And I appreciate that for the most part. I do like that Connor took 7 shots in the last game. That shows that he and Greg Gard are both trying to kind of get him out of that funk and push things forward. So I appreciate that. But yeah, I'm totally with you on the settling of the rotation. My question to you is this. So you talked about Blackwell, which I agree with. Blackwell needs to play more. Who should be in that rotation? Who off the bench? I mean, I feel like McGee has got to play to back up Chucky, right? We're going to need McGee.
I think you're looking at him no more than like 10 minutes a game.
Fair. I think we both agree that Blackwell should be the main guy coming off the bench, right? 100%. So Blackwell, Connor, and then Winter's been getting a lot of minutes too, which I think is a pretty good thing because you need someone to back up Crowl. But I think the big issue, the big question is Gilmore, Ilver, who plays? Should only one of them really play?
I think those two. Honestly, the best way to probably do it is situational. If you're playing a team that has a power forward that's more of a post guy, you play Gilmore. If you're playing a team with a stretch 4, you probably want to put Ilver out there because I think he's a little bit more athletic. I think he offers a little bit more in terms of perimeter ability. And I think that's the way you play it. Like if there's going to be games, like, listen, I don't think it's lost on Gilmore that his skill set is limited in certain ways. Same with Ilver at this point. Like he's not a guy who's shown out that he can go out there and dominate a game. So use them in the way that they best fit what you're trying to do. Now that may be problematic in terms of being able to get guys minutes, but if it works out the way you want it to, you might have some games where you get ahead and you have the ability to kind of get some guys some spot minutes. But I don't I really don't like Gilmore out there against somebody who's potentially a stretch 4. I just don't think he moves his feet well enough to be on the perimeter. And I think he fits better as a post defender. He does actually a pretty good job in there for the most part.
Yeah, he's a good rebounder. I mean, he's a good guy to do a lot of the little things on the inside. Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is going to be to settle into something. And also, it's always bugged me. And it bugged me about Bo Ryan too. Someone turns the ball over, they get pulled. You mentioned it right away. And I think that I even look at the bench. Well, as soon as I see a turnover, I'm looking at the bench, and sure enough, you see Greg Gard point to a guy and say, "Go." That does. I've never loved that. I didn't love it. I haven't loved it for years, even in the Bo Ryan days. Just let the guys play through it, right? You're going to need these guys to play through stuff like this to get better and to understand that when they make a mistake on the court, they can quickly rectify it. So, yeah, I agree, and I hope that changes. But I think we're both in agreement there. Number 2, keep up the solid defensive work. This is something that I've been talking a lot about defense lately. And look, Marquette has scorers, okay? They've got Cam Jones. They've got Oso Ighodaro, I think is what I think. I'm not right. Ighodaro. He is a machine on the inside. They've got Kolek who can shoot the 3. They've got a lot of offensive weapons. And the one thing that I think we've done well recently is rim protection and paint protection, which I'm a big fan of. I understand that we're going to give up open 3s, and we need to be closing out more on those guys, and I hear that. But I cannot stand teams just shredding through the paint and getting layups and that dribble penetration, then kicking out to open guys. I hate it. We've done a really good job lately. And after that Providence game where we got just shredded all over the court, the guys have done a nice job. Now, Marquette is the number 3 team in America. This is going to be very difficult. We're not going to be able to stop them completely, but keeping up that solid defensive work is going to be crucial. And it's really going to be who can we stop Ighodaro on the inside? He shoots 67% from the field because he obviously is mainly shooting from 3 feet in. He is a beast, and that's not going to be easy for us to stop. Crowell's going to have an issue with him. Wahl, Gilmore.
I was going to say, was it Wahl on him last year? I think it was Wahl on him last year.
Yeah. It's not going to be easy, Justin. But you're right. I mean, we have to find a way to just even more so the defensive intensity, right? Being aggressive, getting that ball pressure. I like the aggression we played with. And ever since that Providence game when Greg Gard clearly lit into these guys and said, look, if you're not going to play defense, you're not going to play, they've done a much better job.
Yeah, I think this is a game, and kind of going back to the first point a little bit, this is a game that Winter has to get his feet wet against high-level teams. And defensively, I'm sorry, Greg Gard, you're playing for the tournament this year. You need to develop him. You can't have him have one mistake and pull him. You have to let him take his lumps a little bit so by the end of the season, he's stronger. If it costs you a game like this, who cares? This is not what you're playing for. It's not even a conference game. So who really cares if you end up – I want to beat Marquette just as much as anybody else. But we need, if Winter becomes a plus player by the end of the season off the bench, it's going to be because he gets reps against really good teams and learns to fight through the shortcomings he has at this point as a freshman. The other part of it, the biggest factor about defense in this game is, having watched a little bit of Marquette, we have got to get back on defense.
Mm-hmm.
They really want to run constantly. So we need to get back on, force it into a half-court game and make them really work for it. And if you do that, like, Marquette's easy to get. They're not a team that wants to be playing half-court basketball. And I don't necessarily know that they like a lot of ISO. And if you're a good team defending, meaning you play well as a team where you help well, that's going to be a problem for them. Because I'm not sure they're necessarily a super high-level passing team in terms of having a guy ISO and being able to pass out of it, other than Kolek. Kolek is a great player. There's a reason why the guy's borderline All-American, or is an All-American as point guard. Chucky's going to have to check him. So I think we're capable of doing it. Like, we could make this a game where it ends up being 70-67 or something like that type game. But that's what we're going to have to do. We can't let this game get into the 70s or 80s, because that's going to be problematic for Wisconsin unless we're just shooting the lights out. And as well, I love how efficient we are on offense. I don't want to get into a track meet with Marquette. I want to make them uncomfortable. I want to make them play at a pace that they're not really comfortable with, and make them work for it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of three-point shooters. Joplin, Jones, and Kolek. I think Kolek is shooting like 52% from the from three. So we can't let them. You're right. A track meet, 80 points, not going to be good for us at all.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, take number 3.
Number 3, free throw shooting and efficient offense. One of the surprises so far this season has been we've actually been a pretty good free throw shooting team. That needs to continue. Like, we have got, not to jinx us. We have got to stay at 70+% the remainder of the season, especially in games like this. This is a game we probably need to be at 80%. And if we do that, it'll be a huge factor, most likely, in us winning it. Now, we've done a really good job at getting to the line so far, and I think that we can probably continue to do that against Marquette. I think we have some individual matchups, and this team just they play so fluidly together offensively that I think guys are going to get into good position to score. Like, that's the biggest takeaway I've had so far. We've had a lot of open looks so far in most of our games, and we've had a lot of opportunities where guys can get downhill and at least draw a foul. We haven't had like a ton of dunks and stuff like that, but we've had quite a few times where guys have gotten to the lane and forced the defense to have to give a foul rather than give an easy bucket. And that's important for Wisconsin, because if we can get Marquette in foul trouble, they don't have a ton of size, for one thing. And this is a game where Crowl, if he can get inside and kind of beat up on some people, could be really good for us. You know, you have an opportunity to kind of exploit them, where you kind of saw it with Edey when they played against him. He abused them in the second half in that game. And the game was close, but they didn't have an answer for him. They have more finesse type bigs that want to run and gun, not really guys who want to get in the post and play hard, back to the basket defense.
You mentioned something there that I was going to go with and talk about and add to this is the getting them in foul trouble. They're not a very deep team. I mentioned their rotation really only goes 7 deep, and the two guys coming off the bench most often are their guards. Yeah. They do have one guy, Gold, who comes in off the bench. He's 6'10", I believe. But you're right. Like, if you get Ighodaro in foul trouble, or potentially even in Joplin, you are really hamstringing them offensively, defensively, everything. So we have to be very smart about this. And it does mean, and Tyler Wahl's perfect for this, right? The way how creative he is and how shifty he is in the low block, he can draw those fouls. And it's also dribble drives with AJ Storr. And we've seen how athletic he can be and how quickly he can get to the hoop, and Blackwell and Chucky. So I hope that is a real big game plan for them to get Marquette in foul trouble. And you're playing at home. You're playing with a whiteout crowd. Like, you need to, I think it's a really good opportunity. They are not a deep team. Now, maybe they have people on the bench that we haven't really seen, but from a minute standpoint, you're really only looking at 2 guards coming off the bench. That's all they really bring in. So you can get those forwards in foul trouble, you're going to cause problems. We have a bonus big thing today, and that's using the Kohl Center to your advantage. I mean, you know me, guys. I've always talked about the intangibles of sports. Like, passion and atmosphere is really, really important. When I was in school, The Kohl Center was
amazing.
damn near,
Yeah.
you couldn't do anything. You couldn't win a game there. I remember, I think the entire time I was in college, I think we lost like 3 home games. I mean, it was insane. And it was such a powerful place to play. Now that's gone a little bit down a little in the recent years, but I think that also has to do with talent and teams and everything.
Yeah.
But it's a whiteout. We're going to have a huge atmosphere. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of Marquette fans. Obviously, in-state rivals going to have a lot of that. We need to take advantage of that. That means in the passion that we play with, the aggression that we play with, feeding off the crowd, because you're talking about a number 3 team in America, a potential Final Four team. Some people are picking this team to win the national championship. What an opportunity and an atmosphere for us to feed off of and utilize. And look, you're not going to get an atmosphere like this, even in Big Ten play. You're not seeing, maybe when Purdue comes in, but I don't even, are we playing Purdue at home this year? I'm not really sure.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know. I know we go to West Lafayette, but anyway, the point is that we have to utilize this, and it's going to be a rocket atmosphere. So students, fans, if you're listening and you're going to the game, make that atmosphere amazing. I hope it's great. I wish I was going, but the players have to feed off that. We need to harness that to push us over the edge.
No, I agree completely. It's one of the underlying aspects that we've struggled with when it comes to the basketball team in recent years, and people have really kind of complained about it. I don't know how much of that is warranted. Like we've said, it's one of those things where people want to, and yes, we do play them at home, but it's one of those things where people want to attack, and it's like the atmosphere is kind of contingent on how good the team is. Like, it's part of it is going to be, if you're a really good team, the fans will show up and have energy. And it's kind of the same way that it plays with football. Like, if you're playing well, the fans get into it. And if you're not playing well, the fans tend to sit on their hands. And that's just the way it is. In the last few years, from a talent standpoint, we've struggled a little bit there. We haven't separated from teams. Like, part of what makes teams win at home a lot is when they go on a run, the fans can get into it. And then that kind of gives the team even more energy to play off of. We haven't gone on a run a lot lately in the last few years. We have really struggled to separate. And because of that, it's such a grind that kind of wears on fans a little bit. Like, it causes anxiety when you're watching a game, and I'm sure you've experienced it too when you watch us play. Like, every single possession feels like it's got so much at stake that it just wears on you, and it's taxing. That's why I've said, and that's why I love this team this year. I think they're going to do a pretty good job of putting teams into the blender a little bit and making them try to stay with our efficiency. And that's going to be a problem for a lot of teams, because I think there's a lot of sloppy basketball that's out there. And yes, we'll have games against teams like what we have coming up here in Marquette and Arizona. I wouldn't put Michigan State into that level quite yet, that are going to be able to play and match your efficiency to a point. Those are the games that are the outliers. That's fine. You have to take advantage of the games that aren't that way and learn and grow from them. And there's going to be a lot of games that we play this year in the Big Ten where I think that we're going to be the more locked in team from an efficiency standpoint, and teams are going to struggle to score if the defense is there. If we play like we played against Providence, maybe not so much.
Right.
That's why Marquette scares me a little bit, because there are some correlations there between how Providence played and how Marquette plays.
I mean, there's a lot of things that scare me about Marquette.
There are, but they play that very frenetic, aggressive pace. And that's something that we haven't played a lot this season, especially coming off a game that we just played where they actively tried to play slow with us. So it's going to be interesting to see how we adjust to that going into this one.
Right. So what do we think is going to happen? Let's find out.
The Bucky Report predictions.
Saturday, 11:30, Marquette visits the Kohl Center for a huge whiteout, great atmosphere. So, Justin, 2 things I want to know from you. Number one, in these next 3 set of games, we talked about the title of the show, The Wicked Stretch Begins. Marquette at home, at Michigan State, at Arizona. What record will the Badgers have in those 3 games?
2-1.
Okay, 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Please do explain.
I think there are some impressive things there's some hints that this team could be very good this year. Obviously, they need to continue to grow. Like, I'm not willing to buy in. Like I said, I brought up in the last show that I thought that Elite 8 was a possibility. That is contingent on them continuing to grow. That's contingent on Nolan Winter being a prominent piece off the bench, come the end of the season. That's contingent on Blackwell continuing to grow. There's some things that need to happen for that to continue, but if the defense continues to play at a high level and the offense maintains its efficiency, the three-point shooting is going to come back to the mean a little bit, which means the scoring is going to come up and they're going to have an easier time separating. I actually think we're going to get it done against Marquette. And that's because I really think defensively, if we can slow this game down, I think that we can make them uncomfortable, and I think we can frustrate them. They tend to get a little bit more lax with the ball than we do. And I think that played out last year in terms of turnovers and everything. And I think that is going to be an aspect of how this game plays out that will be a positive for us. I don't think it's going to be a runaway victory or anything like that. This game's going to be down to the wire. It's like if I was going to give you two different ways of looking at it, it's either we lose by 10 or we win by 3.
But you're going with the win by 3.
I'm going with the win by 3.
Wow. Okay. All right. Justin Julka going for the win against Marquette. So I think our
70 to 67.
I think our record is going to be 1-2 in the next 3 games, and that's okay as long as we're playing well. But I also think that we get it done against Marquette because it's at home, because of the whiteout, because I do believe that they're hopefully getting into some foul trouble. Like I said, they're not very deep. At least they don't play a deep rotation. We can definitely take advantage of that. They are a very good team. And if we do lose to them, I think we'll hopefully get Michigan State. But I think we're going to win. I think it's a 1-point victory. I don't know, maybe 69-68 or something like that. Would not surprise me if this game went into overtime. Hope it doesn't. Hope we win in regulation. All day I was thinking I'm probably going to pick a loss here and then pick a win maybe at Michigan State. But the passion of the Kohl Center, I believe it's going to be there. I know that Badger fans, that Badger faithful who are going to be there, the students are going to be up for this game. That means a lot. This is always a really good tight game. We've seen amazing matchups between Marquette and Wisconsin over the years. I expect this to be good. But yeah, I think we eke out a win. But truthfully, like you said, if we do lose by 10, it's not going to surprise me. I will tell you this. If we have a scoring drought that lasts more than a few minutes, we're going to lose this game. If we're 1 for 12 from 3 in the first 10, 15 minutes, we're going to lose this game. Mm-hmm. We need to be efficient. We need Connor to hit some threes. We need to make our 3-pointers. We have to, you know what? I want to say one more thing that's been driving me crazy about the 3. I would like Stephen Crowl to shoot the 3 when he is open at the top of the key.
Or classmates, or
I mean, but the thing is, like, I understand why Gilmore doesn't shoot because Gilmore is not a shooter, and the defense knows that. Well, all of a sudden, the defense is backing off of Stephen Crowl because they know he's not going to shoot, but he can make it. Shoot the ball. Even if you don't make it, you've already improved spacing on the floor. You're forcing them to defend you. They're not just going to let you shoot like that all day. Take the 3. So caveat is we need to make the 3. We have to be able to score. I'm telling you, if I see a 5-minute scoring drought, we're going to lose the game. But I really, really hope we can get through this one. But so Marquette, Wisconsin this weekend. And Justin, you've got some exciting stuff coming up. If you guys haven't seen, maybe a couple weeks ago, Justin did a short 10-minute video on defensive line recruiting. It was great. It was really good insight into kind of the rankings and the composite scores that we've been having. And he compared us to Iowa. But Justin, what other recruiting stuff you have coming up?
Yeah, Friday I plan on dropping another episode, which will be diving into the linebackers. I think it's really interesting looking at the recruiting rankings and everything that we've had there and what the way that room looks now based off of, being able to see it a few years later. So I'll be taking a look at the 2019 through 2023 recruiting classes and kind of diving into that a little bit and what the status is of most of those players at this point.
And speaking of that position, why don't you talk about our newest recruit?
Yeah, Cooper Catalano committed yesterday. I really like him. I've seen some of the film that I've watched on him, and somebody compared him to Mike Taylor. And I'm like, I actually like that comparison. I think that that's a pretty good one. He's not a Allegro type athlete where he's a guy who just runs and is super fluid and athletic, but he's a good athlete. And it will be really interesting to see how his instincts play out, because when people talk about it, and that, like, it's one of the things I want to dive into with the linebacker podcast that I'm going to go into, is I need to see what the instincts are with him to really know what type of player he's going to be. Because if he has really good instincts, that physical ability is going to play up, and that's what we'll find out what he's going to be as a player. If he's not a guy who's going to be a difference maker from an instinct standpoint, he could be similar to the guys that we have right now, which he's not a bad athlete, but he's also not a transcendent athlete. And that's where he's going to lose a step. You have to be able to make the quick decisions and be able to make the right decisions.
Yeah, so definitely check out Justin's linebacker recruiting video, and he's going to keep doing these. We're calling it Recruiting Radar. I think that's what he's going to call it. Yeah. So that'll be a lot of fun. And like, this is Justin's thing. He spends a lot of time working on recruiting. I like recruiting as well, but not quite as much as this guy. And I don't know nearly as much as this guy does. So that's great. But we're really excited about kind of the offseason now of football, and we're going to get into basketball a lot. We're going to dive into a couple other Big Ten things. So there's a lot of cool content coming up. I'm heading to Nashville this weekend to watch my Indianapolis Colts hopefully get a win at Tennessee. So I'm actually going to be gone on Sunday, but I think we're going to record on Monday night next week for our show. So tune in for our big full episode. We're going to break down the Marquette game, of course. We're going to talk about the Michigan State and the Arizona games coming up. And we're also going to do a little regular season review about the Badgers, talk about the bowl game. So there's a lot coming up to talk about. Any last words, Justin?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably dive into the transfer portal a little bit too, because we'll start finding out a lot of info about that shortly.
Yeah, but Miles Burkett declared for the portal today.
Yep, and Dylan
Barrett, the offensive lineman. So yeah, that's going to happen now. You're going to start, if you follow Twitter, you go all over the place. You're going to see all kinds of stuff. We'll definitely dive into that more in the coming weeks. But with that, folks, thanks for listening, and on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, on Wisconsin.